Welcome back everyone, Redwood RC. You asked for it. We're here again. What's up boys and girls? Welcome back to Redwood RC. We're back inside with the mini crawler course and we have some big updates. I've made a ton of progress. As you can see, I've done a lot of retexturing. I've done a lot of reinforcement, and then we basically repainted the entire thing. Worked out all the kinks with the waterfall, so we've got that working properly now. You can see we've got that coated outside there. Now, all that's left to do is to seal up the reservoir for the waterfall so that we can fill that fully, do a final test on that, make sure that everything is working exactly as it should. Then we can go ahead and refill the BBs for the mud pit. Then we can start the really fun stuff like adding all our grass and dirt and leaves and all that sort of cool stuff. We're gonna be adding some rocks, some branches. We've got to construct our river. We've got a lot of details to add, a lot of fun stuff. Now the real fun begins. Got to build the little connection here to the garage, fit out the interior of the garage, build the bridge. We've got a lot of work left to do, but we're making some real progress and I'm really happy about it. Why don't we take a quick look at the retexturing and repainting, because I think it's important to show you guys a little bit of that process. Then we'll go ahead and get the reservoir sealed up. We'll let that cure overnight so that we can fill the little pond there almost all the way to the top. We'll do a full test to make sure that it works properly. I did test it a bit earlier, but it's sort of splashing everywhere because there's nothing in the bottom there. And then we can start fitting everything out. I know there's gonna be, I wanna do some sand in the cave. There's gonna be some rocks down there, rocks there, maybe some sand here. I'm not really sure, a whole bunch of stuff. We got a lot of work to do, guys, but I really wanna get this thing done so that I can start getting some crawling footage on this, have some fun with it with my son, and most of all, enjoy it. That's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
So let's get to work. So you can see over the past few weeks, I have been doing a lot of test driving with all the rigs, taking all the rigs around over all the different obstacles, seeing where I can get to, where I can't, what needs reinforcement, what needs extra traction. You can see a number of places I've added a lot of the cement post-crete mix to add some traction in places, especially here up in this section. This was essentially completely impossible. So I'm hoping adding a little more traction up here will help. It definitely helped here, made this section doable for sure. Still have not completed. I think this is gonna be sort of a rock slide area. We're gonna put some real rocks in there, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm gonna get those in later. Things are a little wet outside still, so I have to collect some stones. I did get the waterfall shaped properly. It took a few iterations, but I think this is gonna be the proper shape. It kind of looks like a tongue, but once it gets painted, it's gonna be a little bit more slick. So I'm hoping that will help the water sort of flow down this shape and into the reservoir here. Things have been chipping off a little bit. That's not gonna get driven on, so it's gonna get painted over. I'm not worried about that, but I have added a lot of texture and a lot of reinforcement to a number of different areas. So, got my drop cloth, got my fans, gonna open up all the windows. I do essentially need to repaint this entire thing, which is kind of disappointing because it's gonna make a big mess of my house, but it must be done. So, I'm gonna set you guys up on the tripod, we'll get to work, get this knocked out, and then we can get to the fun stuff like the details. So now that you saw all of the other stuff that I've been up to on this recently to get this sort of in a place where it's ready to be worked on, let's dive in a little bit closer. Let's get down into this riverbed area. Let's get that started. We'll get the rocks in there. We'll get the epoxy mixed up and get this thing going. I want to get some detail on here so that I can get crawling on this thing. I'm really excited. I've been doing some testing on it, but now it's kind of to the point where I don't want to touch it anymore until it gets done. And that way I can really appreciate the whole thing before I start messing it up. So let's get to work. So we've got a bunch of stuff done on this so far. I'm glad you got to take a look at that. Now that we've done all of that work, the base is prepped. So we can start with the fun stuff. And I think the first step to that is gonna be to add our water feature in. So I got the waterfall working properly so that everything is set up as it should be now. The waterfall is from the actual mouth of the waterfall right down into our reservoir here, which is perfect. That's exactly how I wanted it. And now what we've got to do is add our rocks and our sand to the riverbed, follow it all the way along into the culvert here. And then what we're gonna do is take this 2-part epoxy, mix this stuff up, clear epoxy resin, and we're gonna pour that along in our riverbed here. So it's gonna give us a nice, authentic sort of look, the rocks and the sand and everything. But when the trucks drive over it, it's not gonna get this whole thing wet, which is gonna be really nice. Then once we get that done, I've got a number of paints. I've got some foliage here. I've got some grasses and some other sorts of landscaping. I wanna add a lot of detail to all of this area. We're gonna get some sand in the cave to fill that up, add some rocks into some places here and there, a little bit of rock and sand, just sort of make it look a little bit nicer. I've got some wood and some branches and things to add in to make that even better as well. We're gonna spruce up the mudslide area to make that a little bit more authentic. I still haven't figured out what I wanna do in here yet, but that's okay, we'll get to that. But for now, let's get started on our river. I think that's gonna be the first thing we wanna get started on so that it can dry and harden, and that all the other work that we do up here won't fall down into there and affect it. So let's get started on that. Okay, so we've got the creek sort of laid out. I've got some logs, some grass, some sand, some rocks, some detritus. I don't have any like little scale objects yet. I don't have a 3D printer, so I would print some like 18 scale plastic cups to throw in there for some litter or something, you know, but I just don't have it. So I think it's time. I have this 2-part epoxy resin, Shabibi, 2-part epoxy resin. We're gonna mix that up and we're gonna pour it in all around. So on the back side, all around, all through the creek and all the way there. Hopefully it doesn't leak out all over my floor. We'll find out though. Let's get to work. All right guys, so check this out. This is awesome. Look at this. Look at how cool this is. I am blown away by how easy it is to make something look so cool. So what we've done, we've got the green long grass, the brown long grass, the clump foliage, some sand, some rocks, and the 2-part epoxy and some sticks. And it looks amazing. I'm absolutely stunned. The 2-part epoxy, this was 32 ounces of epoxy. It was barely enough to do just kind of right around here, this little area around here, and just barely enough to reach over there. So 32 ounces, I would have liked more, to be honest, but you know, it is what it is. The waterfall is tuned perfectly. I'm hoping these rocks will disrupt the flow just enough because it's a little intense right now. It's a little crazy. I'm hoping that we can get it tuned just right into the reservoir. I've never gotten into anything like this before. This is my first attempt at this, and I'm absolutely pumped. So what we have to do next, more texturing with the Tamiya paints, with the grasses, the landscaping kit, the foliage, the branches. We're just gonna keep going over the whole thing. We're doing sand in the cave. So inside the cave is gonna be fully sand. Probably gonna do some rocks in here, some rocks in here, maybe a couple here. Oh, we also have trees, lots of trees. So, well, not a lot of trees, a few trees. I need more trees. But we have a few trees to disperse throughout the land. I'm pumped. I'm pumped. Like I said, I can't get over how good this looks. So let's keep working. And we're back, just like that. Easy as pie. Simple, right? I wish it was that easy in real life. We've got a ton of detail done on the crawler course. This thing is looking absolutely fantastic now. And I want to kind of go over and talk about what we've done so far, because I did sort of breeze through the process. A lot of this is sort of artistic and subjective. So it kind of doesn't make sense to film the whole process because it takes quite a bit of time, actually. So let's start with the trees. So the trees, these evergreen looking trees are all part of a set that I got from Amazon. It was like 20 bucks. They're just hot glued in various locations. The hot glue works really, really well for this. It's nice and strong. It dries quickly and solid so that you can stand the trees up and get them in there. It's not super durable though, so I wouldn't recommend, driving over your trees, but it'll hold them up. It's just fine. The dry grass, this stuff is kind of a pain to work with, but it looks really good in my opinion. The grass, both the green grass and the dead dry grass, is all glued in with this E6000 stuff. I'm a big fan of this. It dries very slowly, but it is very tacky, so it's good for stuff like this grass here that's light. The bushes are all also done with this E6000. It can be a little stringy, like hot glue. You can get those little spider web strings all over the place, so that's kind of a pain, but it works really well. And when it dries, it's very strong, so it'll hold all this stuff in place very well. You can drive over it all day with the trucks. It's not gonna go anywhere. The dead branches, the dead trees, whatever you wanna call them, they are also hot glued in. You can see some of that here. I did this just recently, so you can see, just squirt a little hot glue on the base there, jam it in, hold it in place until it hardens, and that works just fine. This turf texture, this was my first time ever using this turf texture stuff. This is all from Woodland Scenics. This is the landscaping kind of texture kit that comes with basically everything you need to make a realistic looking environment. What I've done is use the glue, the spray glue that comes with the kit, to spray down all the surfaces where I thought there was gonna be some sort of turf or some grass growing over here. I'm not a big fan of this yellowy stuff. This is not, it doesn't look how I thought it would on this terrain, but the sort of burnt grass looks really cool. Of course, regular green grass. We've got some of that over here on the cave entrance as well, sort of around the waterfall area. And what I've done to sort of secure some of this stuff in place is spray it down heavily with a mixture of Mod Podge and water, kind of a 1-to-1 mixture in a spray bottle, and then just spray it basically everywhere that I think that I wanted to have some turf, some terrain, some greenery. You can see here on the top of this sort of rock area. One thing I am kind of disappointed about is the stream clouded up a lot. I got a lot of glue overspray on the stream as I was doing this terrain texture and stuff. And then I also dropped quite a bit of the actual turf and whatnot into the stream. I'm also not very happy with the level of the stream. I think it's a little low. It looks okay, not a huge problem, but I think it's a little low. So I might get some more epoxy, add that to it. As I stated earlier in the video, I didn't mix the epoxy quite right. And so there are a few places where it's still a little tacky as well. And so that's kind of a problem. So one more reason to just add another layer of correctly mixed epoxy. The waterfall is completely sealed up and ready to go. I think we're ready for our first test. So we're gonna fill that up, make sure it operates properly, make sure that the stream comes nicely down out of here directly into the reservoir. It should be just fine. I think I worked it out really well. And then what we're gonna do is take some of the rocks and sticks and logs and things that I've had laying around, and we're gonna build sort of a rock slide, sort of an area up here, I think. That's gonna look really cool. I also picked up a couple more bags of, I got this underbrush. It's a light green and a dark green coarse turf. So we're gonna add that to the rock area. We're gonna add a little bit more coarse turf kind of everywhere. Not quite happy with the level of bushes and shrubbery in the general area. So we're gonna add the bushes and the turf. We're gonna add the rocks up there, fill the waterfall, make sure that works. And then we're gonna test it out. We're gonna hit the rocks, finally. We're gonna bust out the TRX 4M. We're gonna bust out the IR60. We're gonna bust out the FCX 24M. And we're gonna check it out. We're gonna see how this course performs. I'm so excited, I cannot wait. This thing has been such a big project. It's been so much fun and I'm dying to test it out. So let's get to work, let's finish it up. I'm sure you guys have seen enough of this process though at this point. So let's just, woo, and just like that, there we go. The main thing you can see that I've done is added some rocks here. So I noticed the one thing that I was missing in this indoor mini crawler course was some real rocks. And so I decided in this little trough, scooped out hill climb kind of area, I decided we'd add some real stone. So I picked out a bunch of real stone from the collection that I have, the little outdoor course, and decided to line it all the way up with some branches, smaller rocks, a little bit of sand. I might have played myself a little bit. I definitely gonna need the traction here, so the sand is definitely gonna hurt me. That'll be an interesting obstacle to tackle with the tiny trucks. We added, you can see the little bit of the light green shrubbery. This is definitely the area where that made the most impact. I added a lot of that around the cave here. To sort of the spring greenery area where the waterfall is. We added some stone here to this little deep pit area. I just felt that was kind of empty and too open, so I just added a little bit more stone to that. I wasn't really running the trucks through there anyway, but I think that'll give me an interesting little challenge line to try to come across the top here, maybe up and over. I don't know, we'll find out. We spiced up the mudslide area a little bit, the grass hill area a little bit as well. I'm not a big fan of this coarse dark green turf. It looks okay in a few different spots here and there, but I'm not a giant fan of it. I don't think it's gonna work out too well in many different locations. I'm a giant fan of this little rock climb area. This is super cool to me. I'm really digging this. I think this part is gonna be very hard, this transition. I might have to make some changes to that once we do some test runs on it. But these are all held in place with hot glue, just a couple of tacks here and there. And once they're all in and glued together, it's a very solid structure. These aren't going anywhere, so I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with how that came out. The kind of fall mud pit area is looking super cool. I'm really happy with this. Not a big fan of this orange and yellow fall color shrubbery stuff from Woodland Scenics. I think it's a little bit too bright. I wanted to end up with sort of a fall, early winter, muddy kind of area over here, but I think what it's sort of turning into is like almost like a desert area. I don't know, but I'm not a giant fan of that. We'll see if I can work it in more or not. I'm not sure. All that being said, last thing to do, let's get this reservoir filled up so we can test the waterfall and make sure it works properly. Okay, well, as you can see, we're having a little bit of a problem. I didn't seal this up properly, and now it's leaking everywhere. I don't know. I think I might ditch this setup entirely. I did run this lower reservoir thing thinking this would be a good idea, but it's ended up sort of terrible. So I think I might just ditch this entirely, seal up the bottom, move the pump to the upper reservoir, and run it that way like a normal human being. But in the meantime, I do at least want to show you what it looks like with the water flowing. So let's get that going so you can take a look. All right, well, I'm a little bit annoyed because after quite a bit of struggling, I was unable to get the fountain, the waterfall to work properly. This thing has been such a pain in the ass. The flow was perfect coming out of here, dropping down right into the basin previously, and then I ruined something. I don't know what I did. I put these little rocks and sand in here to try to make it look a little more realistic in scale. I thought that might have messed it up, so I ripped the rocks out, tried again, and it's just making a mess. We're getting water all over where there shouldn't be water. It's still leaking out of the bottom here, so there's a big giant mess on my floor, and it's kind of late and I'm frustrated. So we're gonna take a break. We're gonna get some shots of the landscape so that you guys can see what it looks like and how far it's come in this process. Sometimes you gotta know when to cut your losses. If you guys have any questions about the process, about what I've done here to get any of these results, or if you would like to know anything further about the course itself or the content I've got coming up in the future or anything like that, leave me a comment down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, because I want to keep doing this. And the more you guys watch, the more excited I'll be to do this. So until next time, thank you guys. Redwood RC, we'll see you on the next one.